Hey everybody, I thought I'd do a quick little video because I do my little videos sometimes about other stuff. And if you're wondering what that is, I was cooking in my air fryer and it just went off. But I thought I'd do a video about a situation that happened to me because I decided to join Match.com. And I don't know, like, guys on Match.com, is that like the worst of the worst? Okay. So I was trying to be a better person, and people are always like, give people a chance and stuff, because like I'll meet somebody and he's great and I'll date them and I'll meet them in the city. Then when I tell them where I live, they're like, where is that? And they're like, no clue where that is. But during the day here, like the whole county empties out because if you have a decent job, you're leaving and going into the city or somewhere nearby. So I grew up that way. I meet everybody that way, all my friends, everybody I know is that way. So I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on rent. So then I moved up north. And the further I move up north, every time I meet like an older lady, because I had like a college professor and I told her where I lived, she's like, why would you move here? This is where senior citizens go and or seniors go and where you go to get married. Then I ended up moving even farther north. And she's like, are you trying to tell me you're a Trump supporter? And it's like, I have no issues with if you're a Trump supporter or not or anything. Because she thought it was crazy because she's like, what it's known for up there is racism and meth. And because it was like, are you a Trump supporter? Are you a meth head? Like, what's going on? So I'm like, none of those things. And it's a lot of racism here too. So she's like, that's not safe and it's not very smart. But I chose to make that choice to move up here because I didn't want to spend all that money on rent. So after I moved here, they cut like service because I commute everywhere. They cut services on the bus, on the trains, and everything after a while, especially during COVID. But I'm still here because it's really cheap. And I was like looking online today to see how much it would cost if I rented my apartment today. And I'm like, hell no, I would not rent this apartment today for the price they're charging for the same apartment that I have. They're charging almost $1,000 more than what I pay. And that's crazy. But there was this guy, because everybody's like, oh, why don't you give guys out there a try? There's like this one guy, I don't know why. I talked to him on a dating site. He seemed funny. It was like, I thought he was joking, but he really does talk like that. And it's like, why do you talk like that? I don't understand what you're saying. And then it's kind of like, because I'm brown, I'm supposed to understand him. But it's like, I don't know what the hell you're saying. You make no sense to me. You sound stupid. And when I told him he had the education of somebody that was like in prison or something, I was like, how long were you in prison? Because it's like, why do you talk like that? You sound crazy. And like he never tried to love bomb me. He's like, and then like the crazy thing is he didn't try and date me, but he tried to hook up with me. And then later this never happened, never hooked up with him or anything, because I can't hook up with somebody I can't even understand. And it's like, your first language is English, but you can't speak English. No, that's not going to work for me. So he never tried to love bomb me, but he kept trying to hook up with me. And it's like, no, it's not going to work. And then he like tried to be my friend, and then he like disappears, and then he like calls me out of the blue. And I'm like, okay, why? Yeah. And he's like, oh, we should hang out. And then every time he tries to hang out with me, he tries to hook up with me. And it's like, because I only actually hung up with him one time, and that was just like maybe 3 months ago or so. And it was like, yeah, this is interesting. Because the way I met him was actually interesting, because like we talked online, but the way I actually met him, turns out he was a package delivery person. And I met him at my front door one day when he was delivering me a package. I didn't know who he was. And then he starts saying, oh, and everything, called me by my name and stuff. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you lived here and everything. And then he starts talking to me, and I'm like, I don't know who you are. I'm not sure what's going on. And then he explained to me who he was. Then I was like, oh, okay, you look nothing like your pictures. Yeah, so that was interesting, but that's not love bombing. But where I live, it sucks to date. It's like, I actually did date somebody here, but that was when I was younger and they were in college and they were not from here. Dating somebody from here is weird. Like this guy, I tried to give him a chance because he seemed illiterate, but he seemed nice. Because like we were talking on Match.com, And there were like all these typos, and I'm like, why are there so many typos? He's like, I have big fingers. And I'm like, no, that's not it. I've dated giants. I've dated shortest guy I ever dated was like 5'10". But I dated guys like 6'8", 6'2", 6'4", 6 foot. They have huge fingers. They can spell and read and write. And this is weird. So then, because like on his profile, he wrote his whole name. And I'm like, because like I even gave him tips on his profile because I'm like, that's not safe. Because he kept talking to me. So I'm like, why don't you give me your number? He's like, I don't feel comfortable giving you my number, but you gave me your whole name. I Googled you and I can see your family has a business. I can see where you live. I can see your aunts and uncles, all this information. But if you gave me your phone number, I wouldn't know anything about you besides your phone number. But instead, he gave me his whole family history and where he lived and stuff. And then it was like weird because he kept talking about, oh, he owns all this stuff. And he's like, well, I don't own it. My dad owns it. But when my dad dies, it's going to go to me. And it's like, okay, that's weird. And I'm like, do you live on your own? He's like, yes, on my dad's property. Yeah. And it was like, I was trying to give this guy a chance. He was like from a small town. He seemed nice because I didn't realize the town he was from was so small, because I assumed it was a decent sized town like the town I live in. But he was like, no, because the school there, because when I looked him up, it came up with his school, his high school he went to. And that was another thing. He only had a high school education, but I gave him a chance. He was an electrician, or is an electrician, and he works for his father. But I saw that his high school only had like maybe 30 people in it. And I thought this town was a pretty decent sized town because like there's a train and they're building a station there. And it's like, if the high school is that damn small, how many people live in this town? If they're going to even build a train station there, it's like, what's the point? Yeah, but then he start like going, I'll treat you so nice. I want a wife. I want kids. It's like, yeah, I'll say to somebody if there's a potential date, I'm saying like my end goal someday is to get married or something. I'm looking for a husband that can be a husband, provider, and all that good stuff. And it's not like I'm saying you need to be a millionaire and anything, just have a decent income and support yourself. But I'm not really interested in supporting a man, and I don't expect a man to support me. But I was willing to give him a chance after all this stuff. And then he's like, because I'm like, yeah, you just got to give up the deer and stuff. And it's like, I'll give you a chance. But he's like, I eat deer. And I'm like, you eat Bambi? He's like, no, I eat Bambi's mother. And I'm just like, okay, that's weird. Yeah, and he's like, oh, I do it for my father. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to eat deer for your father. You can stop. Yeah, and then he was like, oh, because he was saying he had guns, and it's like, I don't like guns. And he's like, oh, I go out in the woods with them. And then he's like, oh, you should come to my property and see my horses and stuff. And I'm thinking like, why the fuck would I go with you out in the woods? You're talking about you take guns and stuff. You're talking about there might be a bear. And it's like, what the? And I'm just like, I go in the woods all the time and I hang out. And I've been going in the woods since I was a kid. No one's ever taken a gun. No one's ever done this stuff. So I'm thinking like, this is crazy. So then, because he was like, we were supposed to hang out today. So then he canceled me. He's like, oh, I need to work today. And then he's like, okay, so we'll have a video chat. Because I was trying to video chat with him. For some reason, he was like refusing a video chat. He's like, I don't feel comfortable yet. So then he's like, okay, so I really like you. Let's have a video chat on Saturday at 11. So he's not online. So I'm like, I guess you're busy. Next thing I know, he blocks me. And it's like, what? You were just trying to plan a whole life with me and all this stuff. And then next thing, when I show up for the video chat and you're not there and I give it a while and you don't come and I go, I guess you're busy. I understand. And then he sent me a message. I couldn't see the message because he blocked me, but he sent me a message. It was a long message. I just couldn't read it because as soon as I got the message, he blocked me, which was funny. Yeah. And then there was like this other guy. He seemed like a nice guy. He didn't live here. He lived somewhere else. But he was like, because I don't get this love bombing thing. he was like, oh, you seem so great. We should hang out. We should date. We should do all this stuff. And then he's like, oh, you should move in with me and everything. And then he's like, and then like later he's like, things are moving too fast and everything. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? You're the one that's talking about me moving in with you, quitting my job to go there. And I'm just like, what, you're saying this is moving all too fast, but you were the one that was moving. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is a little fast for me. And it's like, if I listened to this guy, I would be unemployed and homeless. And it's like, do these guys realize what they're doing when they're trying to love bomb people? And then they're like, oh no, it's moving too fast and everything. And it's like, if somebody really fell for this shit, they would be homeless. And it's not even like a 1-2 time thing. It's like, guys like do this a lot, the love bombing. I'm just like, someday I might want to get married, maybe not to you, but I'm putting it out there that someday I'd like to get married, maybe not to you, but I'm not trying to like love bomb you and stuff. Yeah, it's like really weird. I don't get it. But like where I moved to, it's like if I want to get a date, it's like basically I have to lower my standards because I make a decent income. Like in some other places, like here, I'm just like average middle class. If I move somewhere else, I'd be like upper middle class. Like if I moved to the South or something, because I make a good wage. And then it was like, I almost, because I volunteered to work the holiday, because I always work the holiday and then not go to work for a while, because I get a lot of overtime if I want it. So I volunteer for overtime. And this guy was trying to get me to take off time from work to spend with him. And then the next thing you know, he blocks me. Because there was this other guy. He was like, oh, let's hang out. Let's do this and everything. And we'll have so much fun and everything. And it's like, I work a lot. So if I'm going out with somebody, that means it's costing me money, a lot of money. That means I'm taking off a shift. And at my job, like sometimes a shift might be 15 hours to 24 hours. So I'm taking off time from work, and it's like, this is a big chunk of change I'm taking off. And then you cancel on me, and then you're like, I'm sorry. Well, oh wait, no, this guy, he was like, he didn't live too far away either. I was like, I took off time to hang out with you. And he's like, oh, that's okay. At least you have time to yourself. And I'm like, what the fuck? I just missed out on like a couple of $100 to hang out with you. It's like, I'm not a millionaire or anything. And it's like, I don't like when somebody's messing with my money. If I'm taking time off and this is just like, I gave you faith. I tried to be open-minded because I know I have a busy schedule. Because sometimes I'll have free time. I won't go to work for a bit because I don't want to. Or, well, I'll go to work. I'll go to my like regular job, but then I have like side jobs I do in my free time. And then if I take off time from something, and it's not like something that where I'm like, I'm going to take off time for myself and do something. But if I take off time to like hang out with somebody or something, I'm going to be pissed off. And the fact that like these guys, I don't know, I don't get it. Because that one guy who was like, oh, you have time for yourself. And then it was like, because he was like, oh, his rent's so cheap and everything, and things are so good for him. He has a house. And I'm like, if everything's going so good for you, why do you have a roommate? Yeah, and then I don't like when guys are like, oh, I'm doing so well for myself, I have a roommate. If that person, it's like if you owned a house and then like you had like a guest house or something, you rented that out, like cool, whatever, I don't care. It's like you can go like, oh, I'm like independent and everything, and it's like no problem with that. But like when you live in an apartment or whatever and you're sharing where they're in your personal space, or like in your house, in your kitchen, in a bedroom in that house, and they're paying rent and stuff, and you're like, oh, I'm so independent. You're not independent. You need that person to help you pay your rent. It just annoys me when I try and give somebody a chance and then they like, oh, I don't know, it just annoys me. Yeah, and then like I realized something was wrong because I kind of felt like he couldn't read or something, or maybe he had like the messages being read to him, because we talked about our birthdays and how our birthdays were so close to each other, like 5 days apart. And then we were talking, and it's like I remembered his birthday, and then I asked him, when's my birthday? He's like, I don't know. It's like, we just talked about this. How do you not know my birthday, but I know yours? Why do I? It's like, I Googled you and I know a lot about you, but beyond just Googling you, when you gave me the information, it was like I paid attention. And I even read through like your spelling mistakes and stuff, and he didn't seem to know shit about me. But I just found this like so interesting, and the love bombing and everything. And it's like, I moved to this town because it's cheap, but I think this town might lead to me like never getting married and being alone forever. Because this isn't a town where like people that are brown or minorities come to. If you come here, it's more like, yeah, couldn't find something somewhere else, or because it was cheap. It's not a bad town. It's a nice town. It's like, I would say, if you're white, you'd love this town that I live in. If you're a minority, you would not like it probably. Or if you've ever lived in a city, you don't like it. It's like a suburban, because it's like, I lived in an upper class suburb that was nice, and this is a nice suburb, but I would say it's not a suburb that if you were a minority, you'd want to live in. It's like what you see a lot of people with like monster trucks and stuff like today. There was this guy, I don't know what this guy does to me. It seems like he's unemployed, because it seems like I see him every day when I come home from work, when I go to work. And I leave and go to work at all different times, because I'll pick up shifts and do different things and do side jobs. And no matter what, he's standing on the street smoking, or he's walking up and down the street. And it's like, my neighborhood's not cheap, so it's like, he must be living off somebody, because I don't understand how you could pay the rent. Because I know in his building, his rent's almost like $3,000, and I live in an affordable neighborhood. Yeah, because his rent's like almost $3,000, and he's just walking up and down the street all day. So it's like, how is he paying rent? Doesn't seem like he even has a job, which is weird. Yeah, and like another thing I noticed that's so annoying in my neighborhood, like, I go to the city, like, everybody's wearing a mask, everybody's covered up, worried about monkeypox, COVID, legionnaires, and all that stuff, because all those things are going around in the area, like, bad. And like in the city, everybody's covered up and protected. Like out here, people are like, yeah, nothing, like it's nothing. They look at you weird if you wear a face mask and stuff. Even at like the height, it's crazy. It's just a weird place. And then I'm put out there like, oh, I'm just this big city girl. And then this guy, another red flag about this one guy that I was supposed to video chat and hang out with, who canceled on both, is that there's this small town. It's like a small hick town. And he's like, oh, he loves going there. It's the big city. And I'm just thinking, like, what do you mean it's the big city? It's like, yeah, I go there because they have like this one store that's like closing down everywhere. And it's like one of the places that still has this store. And I like that store. So I'll go there every now and then for that, to the city or something. Or yeah, pretty much that. Or unless I make an appointment for something, because that's like the bigger city over here. But it's not like a big city. It's like a small hick town. And I'm like, do you ever go to the actual bigger city in the area where like people know it like nationwide and across the world? He's like, oh no, I've only been there like 5 times. And I'm like, what do you mean you've only been there like 5 times? It's like you only live like a little over an hour away from it. And you've only been there like 5 times. And people on the other side of the world have been there more than 5 times. But you live like a little over an hour away from it. You've only been there 5 times. Because he kept saying he was a country boy. And it was like, okay, because then he was saying some other stuff. So I was thinking he was like country boy, like Georgia, Florida line, where it's like you're country, but you seem like you have some city in you. But it was like, no, it was interesting. But love bombing, that just annoys me. But I don't know. When I go to the city, I always meet somebody and somebody that asks me out and stuff. But then when I tell them where I live, they're like, no. Oh, but there was this guy on Bumble. I could include the message and stuff, but I'm not going to do that to this guy. Because he was like, oh, I like you and everything. You're cute. We should go hang out and go on a date and everything. And then he was like, oh, I realize where you live. He's like, do you want to be friends with benefits? And I'm like, what happened to you wanting to date me? He's like, oh, you live too far away. So it's like, yeah, we can just be friends with benefits because you live so far away. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's messed up. Yeah, because I've actually heard that a few times, but mainly from people here. They're like trying to like hook up with me and stuff. Because I remember when I first moved here, there was this guy. He was nice to me. He was a nice guy. He was cute. And like we used to hang out. And then the funny thing was, one day we're hanging out and everything. And then, cause like I would see him like when I would come home from work and everything, because we would both commute. And then one day he's like, "Oh, I have a fiance." And I'm like, "Wait, what? You're trying to date me, but you have a fiance?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Does your fiance know?" He's like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work out." So, yeah, it's interesting living here and the love bombing. And it's like, how do you go from being like relationship material and everything, and you're like dating, living your best life, and then you choose to live somewhere more affordable? And then I know you're thinking like, where is $3,000 a month, or almost $3,000 a month for rent, affordable? Well, that's affordable here. Yeah, like 25,000, oh, not 25,000, 2,500 or so a month to 3,000. That's pretty much what my street goes for. About average 25 to 3,200 a month. Yeah, on my street. But that's like barely, that's like almost poverty. But that's what it goes for, and you're thinking like, where does she get this from? It's California. It's expensive. And then it's like the guys here, they either, I don't know, a lot of them live with their parents. It's like, I do not want to date a 40-year-old man that's still depending on his parents for support. Or another thing, like this guy, he was from like a few weeks ago, he tried to make me feel bad because I tried to be nice to him. It was like he worked at, I'm not going to say where he works because I've already given too much information, but he works at, as a sales associate. I said I work as a counselor and a school teacher. And I'm just like, if we ever go out somewhere and we meet somebody that I know, and then they're talking to you and they're like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And then you say sales associate, and they look at me like I'm crazy, because it's like, you try and educate people so they don't end up with a life like this, but then you're dating someone like this. And then he's like, and I'm like, and I was trying to be nice. I'm like, "You're busy. You're in your life getting busy, like working on your education." And because he was a father too. And I'm like, "You're busy being a dad." And he's like, "No, I only see my kid 2 days a week on the weekend. And I have a lot of help from my parents." And I'm just thinking like, okay. But I'm like, "Oh, you send the mother a lot of child support, so you're hardworking and getting your education together." He's like, "No." And it's like, I keep trying to give him an excuse of something he can say he's doing, but to me, it just sounds like he's a bad father and a deadbeat from the impression that he gave me. Because it's like, you only see your kids, like, I think like 2 days a week or every other week or so for 2 days. And he's like, he gets a lot of help from his parents. It's like, why do you need help if you only see your kid 2 days a week or every other week? And if you're not even paying child support? What do you need help from your parents for if you basically don't do anything for your kid? And he's trying to tell me how I'm being judgmental and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, why would I want to date you and then take that chance of getting pregnant or something? And I see how you are as a father from what you're telling me. And it's like, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, to have you as a father, because it sounds like you're just a deadbeat. And it's like, how would you explain, like, if like the school teacher told you she was dating a drug dealer or whatever, and it's like, you're supposed to be a role model for the kids, and you're dating this guy, and it's like, why don't you do better? And it just makes you look bad, and it just all around looks bad. But you try to make it seem like I was a bad person. It's like, I'm not a bad person. It's like, shouldn't you be an example for your child? And it's like, you're not even with your child, so it's like you have all this free time where you could go and improve your life, and it's like you chose not to. And it's like, I'm trying to understand, and you're saying I'm mean, and it's like, no, it's not gonna work out. dating, love bombing, all this crazy stuff. If you like to hear me talk about dating, everything that I talk about on my channel and show, watch, subscribe, and keep a lookout for all my videos. And thanks for watching and supporting my channel. Bye.